Okay, a couple quick things before we start. Preheat oven to 325. Measure out all of your ingredients. Fit a large piping bag, or in my case a Ziploc bag, with a round tip, and then put it around a bowl so that you can easily transfer the mix from one bowl to another without getting it all over. Okay, that's basically it. Let's get started. Hello, today we are making macaroons, and I have made macaroons 7 times. First 2 times, complete fail, was inedible. The next 3 times, you could kind of eat them, semi-edible, peel them off the tray in little crumbles. Last 2 times I have made them, they worked. So we're gonna hope they work this time, and I'm going to be going through the steps with you. This is by no means a how-to video, so if you really want to know how to do it, I would either go watch a different how-to video, but still watch this one because it's gonna be great, or go to the link in my description and look at that recipe because that's the one I will be using now. If you really want to make macaroons, I would recommend watching this video and then going and reading all the instructions, because I have some tips that I haven't really seen anywhere that I think could help you. Also, I think just seeing it realistically and not one of those Instagram face down, now pour this in here, blah blah blah, I think it'll help. The recipe we will be using is from piesandtacos.com. It is chocolate macaroons. I've done this one before and it worked. It's also got some different techniques than what I've normally done. For example, you actually cook the mixture before you put it in the oven, which I've never seen before, and it's really cool. And also in this recipe, you don't need cream of tartar, which I've gone before and bought, and I don't really know if it makes much of a difference. It says it does, but I don't know, and you don't need it, so you probably won't have to go out and buy it because I'd never heard of that before. I tried to make macaroons. Am I talking fast? I feel like I'm talking fast. Okay, let's just take 1 minute. Okay, step 1, we will need a medium bowl and a sieve. If you don't have a sieve, you can still make macaroons, but they will end up a bit lumpy. This is my favorite kind of sieve. I used to use the kind that you have to like wind up, but I found it didn't work as well. Also, quick tip, you only use dry ingredients in these, and when you go clean them, just kind of tap it out because you only use dry ingredients, so it should be fine. So we are going to be combining 1 cup of almond flour, a half a cup of powdered sugar plus 2 tablespoons, and 2.5 tablespoons of cocoa powder. I'm using dark chocolate cocoa powder because dark chocolate is way more superior than light milk, whatever you call it. So, and then you're gonna be kind of loud at this part, but you're just gonna shake it, and it will take some time. This little knob right here is meant to go on your bowl. No matter what your bowl size is, unless it's literally huge, you should be able to just easily sift it back and forth. You will see that lumps will start to form. You can kind of just break those apart with your fingers. Also, make sure you've washed your hands. You probably all have because of stuff. You will have to touch some of the ingredients, so just be aware. You can just break those apart and then continue to sift. Don't force any of the ingredients to go through because the whole point of sifting it is to get out all of these little bits. You'll see there's a lot of them, and a lot of them won't really go through anymore. So don't force them through. You're gonna get a lot of almond flour things and a couple powdered sugar clumps. That's fine. They're actually pretty good. You can taste them. Delicious. Almond flour is actually really good. So if you want, you can snack on these. They're actually really good. I'm gonna put them in a little container now. Delicious. So it should now look like this, and it might not be fully combined, so just whisk it a couple times. Just whisk it until it's completely combined and then set aside. Okay, next up is the fun part. We're gonna be dealing with eggs. So I've actually already done this, but your eggs have to be room temperature for you to be able to whip them properly. And it's not such a big deal with this recipe since you're already gonna heat it up, but I still find it's helpful, so I'm still gonna do it. What you do is you just get a bowl full of hot water and then you place the eggs still in their shells, obviously, in the bowl, wait like 5 minutes, and then they should be room temperature when they're done. So I'm just gonna take these out, and I'm personally gonna dry them off just because I find that's easier. This step is technically not necessary and it's not in the instructions. I've just found it from other recipes where you don't heat the mixture on the pan, but I still find it's helpful, so I still do it. And it's really not that much effort. Just like when you're setting up, just put them in a bowl. You know, it's not that hard. So now that these are room temperature and dry, we now have to separate the egg whites. So 1 at a time, you're gonna crack an egg into here and then take out the yolk. There are tons of different ways that you can separate egg whites from the yolk. I personally do it with my hands. Say what you want, but I think it's the best way because you are very much in control and the egg yolk barely ever breaks. So I spent so long teaching myself how to crack an egg with one hand so that only one of my hands gets dirty. It's actually a really helpful skill and it's not super hard. You just have to practice a lot, so whenever your family is having eggs or whatever, just ask if you can crack them, which you probably already do because cracking eggs is fun. So as you can see, I have the yolk now in my hand. I'm just gonna go put it down the sink. If you have another recipe that only uses egg whites, for example, souffle pancakes, they only use egg yolks. And so if you wanna also make those, you can save this. I'm just gonna throw mine away because I don't need that much dessert in my life. So now I'm just gonna pour my egg whites into this bowl. I do this just in case I accidentally break one of the next eggs. I'm only wasting one egg instead of 3. I'm telling you, cracking an egg with one hand is so helpful because then you can open the garbage, turn on the sink, and you're not getting egg everywhere. And pour. One more to go. So now that I've got all 3 of my egg whites in here, I don't need this anymore, so I can go rinse this out, clean as I go, helps for less mess later. Trust me, your future self will thank you. So next you're gonna add a half a cup of white granulated sugar to your egg mixture. Well, your eggs. And just add that to your egg whites. Then just whisk. Just whisk until combined. Okay, and then this is my favorite part. You're gonna take a small saucepan and pour your egg sugar mixture into it. I'm gonna use a spatula just to make sure that I get everything out. Now you're gonna need a whisk for this next part. Transfer your pan over to your stove and turn your stove on to medium heat. And then you're just gonna continually whisk until your egg sugar mixture becomes frothy and white. Hi, what you doing?
Not much.
What?
Not much.
I'm putting that in the video.
Okay.
Good job. The mixture should be frothy and the sugar should be fully dissolved. Okay, so mine is done now. So now I'm just gonna transfer this back to the bowl. And again, I'm gonna use a spatula to try to get the rest out. Quick tip, you're gonna wanna quickly wash this because it'll dry and it'll be terrible to get off. It's super easy to get off if you do it right then and there. Okay, so I'm kind of wasting time and you're gonna want a handheld mixer. You can also use a KitchenAid, but we don't have one. I recommend not using a whisk because your hand will hurt and it'll take a really long time. Okay, so now you're just gonna whisk until you get, wait, what's it called? Stiff peaks. So you're just gonna whisk this until you get stiff peaks. So right now I am at soft peaks. Soft peaks is when you can kind of see the shape, but it's not gonna hold it well. Stiff peaks is where you can pick it up and it'll hold its shape completely. A good test of this is if you can hold the bowl upside down and nothing falls out. So we're gonna have to continue to mix. Not done. Every single macaroon video I've ever seen, they're always like, don't overmix, which is true. You shouldn't overmix, but in my experience, I found it's worse to undermix than to overmix because when you overmix, you can always kind of correct it in the next phase when you mix in all of your dry ingredients. If you undermix, there's really nothing you can do and it'll just be runny and gross and it won't work. But also don't overmix. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so let's unplug this. Again, you're gonna wanna soak these as fast as possible. You can try to taste them, but it's really just egg whites and sugar, which is meringue, by the way. If you didn't know, this is called meringue. It's actually completely safe for you because it doesn't have the yolks in it, so you're free to eat it. It's not amazing, it's just like sugar, but that's okay, you can try it. If you've gotten to this point and you decide to give up, don't throw this away because you can totally just pipe this onto a tray, put it in the oven for a bit, and you will have meringue, and it's crunchy, it dissolves in your mouth, and it's the weirdest sugary experience I've ever had, so do that instead. But also macaroons are better, so I would say put in the extra effort and do that. Okay, next step. Now we get to start adding the dry ingredients. So pull back your bowl that you set aside. Hopefully it's still there and you didn't lose it. What am I saying? And you're just gonna slowly start to combine. You're gonna wanna use a spatula for this, not a whisk. If you use a whisk, it just won't work as well. So just start to combine it. You might wanna sift it again if your mixture is not good. What? In the instructions, it says to start forming a letter J. I just kind of scrape the sides and then fold in because I'm not really sure how you're supposed to do a letter J. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it right, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but this is how I've always done it, so. Okay, and then I'm just gonna add the rest. This is where you really have to be careful because if you overmix this, it'll just be too runny and it won't work. So be careful. One of the things it starts to say is it should look like thin ribbons. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to look like, but once you kind of do this, it like makes sense. You have to have like the feel for it. So once it's all evenly combined, this is when you're gonna wanna start testing it to see if it's ready. So one of the first tests you can do is try to do a figure 8. If it holds through your figure 8, then that is an indication that it's done. Mine's still super stiff, so it like won't even do that. So I have to continue to mix until mine gets thinner. It's kind of backwards though, because in the last step, if you overmixed, it got stiffer. But in this step, the more you mix, the looser the batter will get. So after I folded it a bit more, I can test it again. It's still not that ribbony consistency that I want. Some people describe this as molten lava, but I don't really know how you're supposed to compare desserts to magma, because who's actually like seen magma? Like, I don't know.